right, salutations, listeners. Si valas valeo, vala magulis, nanu nanu. Thank you for tuning in. This is Three Men and a Basement, and we are the Ultra Crepidarians. My name is Colin McLeod.
Mark Culp.
Timothy Magic.
In this podcast, we review movies and deliver to you, the listener, an average schmuck's opinion about hidden gems in the wide world of cinema. In this show, we try to target movies that are not blockbuster smashes and not so obscure that you couldn't get your hands on a copy if you wanted to. But instead, we try and hit that delightful sweet spot of movies that are right in the middle. We aim for films that are, in our experience, too many people haven't seen. Maybe they've only heard of them, or one that some may have, seen but forgotten about, and deserve another watch. We review these and deliver to you our take on what they are, what we liked, what we didn't like, and whether or not it's worth your time to go and watch these movies. So with that, we'll move into the movie we reviewed this week. The movie was 1408. And I'm giving you a little bit of the IMDb highlights. So this movie is 1408. Came out in 2007. IMDb has it as a fantasy horror mystery. It's rated PG-13. Directed by, okay, I'm going to butcher this, but I'm going to try. Michael Hofstrom? It's got a lot of things I don't recognize as, like, punctuation and pieces of language, so it's definitely from something I don't speak.
You're saying standard foreign?
Exactly, standard foreign. It stars John Cusack, that you may remember from basically anything John Hughes directed. What else we got John Cusack coming at?
High Fidelity.
High Fidelity, classic.
Classic. Must Love Dogs.
Must Love Dogs. The Raven, which actually had sort of a tone a little bit similar to this film. So if you've seen The Raven, John Cusack kind of delivers a similar performance.
Earlier performance in Say Anything.
Yeah.
Oh, perfect. Yeah.
That's classic. Sam Jackson is also in this film.
Now, what has he been in?
I don't know. I don't really recognize that name.
L. Jackson. Samuel L. Jackson.
Samuel L. Jackson. Oh, that motherfucker. I remember that mother.
He was the guy in Snakes on a Plane, I think.
Yeah.
That was his breakout role.
No.
He was a badass motherfucker.
Nope, I don't think
Fishburne?
that was Kenan Thompson.
No.
Gotcha.
No.
All that?
Nope.
From All That fame?
Incorrect.
Sam Jackson, he's the man. Everybody loves Sam Jackson. Mace Windu.
Give me a purple fucking lightsaber.
Yeah, like Pulp Fiction. Just name your poison. Black Snake Moan.
Yeah.
Like anything that guy touches is
Shaft.
gold. Shaft. How do we not lead with that? I feel a little upset that we didn't lead
John
with
Shaft, motherfucker.
But maybe not the recent Shaft.
Yeah.
Yeah. Tony Shalhoub is also in this movie. So fucking Tony Shalhoub.
Fucking Monk.
Yeah, Monk fans. If you like Tony Shalhoub, or if you like Monk, you obviously love him. 13 Ghosts, which I think is sort of like an not under the radar, but like it's a Tony Shalhoub film that doesn't fit him. Mm-hmm. And I feel like this is maybe another one that like the tone of the movie doesn't really fit Tony Shalhoub's style, but it's pretty good. Like his performance in it, as short as it is worth checking. Also, Mary McCormack, who I am not so familiar with. Tim, I believe you said that you're more familiar with her work. So she was in Deep Impact, K-Pax.
Oh, yes, I remember that now. Yeah.
She's kind of like that lady you get if you can't afford Jennifer Garner.
Yeah, kind of the Walmart version of Jennifer Garner.
Absolutely.
I might even bump it up to Target version.
Okay, well, the Target version is more expensive. So basically, what we're saying is, Mary McCormack, you're more talented than Jennifer Garner, and we love you for it. So take that for all the gravitas that it's worth. So that is the sort of 10-cent version of this movie. We're going to go into our recommendations here, and then we're going to stray into spoiler territory. So first, I'm gonna kick it over to Mark here, and I really want to get Mark's 2 cents on this.
I'm excited because I mean I don't want to tip the hat or anything, or tip the cards. I really enjoyed this movie, and I know that I perhaps don't share the table with two other gentlemen who agree. But my opinion, I enjoyed it. I recommend it. I think for me, it falls right there with The Shining, in the way, in the environmental storytelling. That is the niche that I'm going to file this under. Yeah, I recommend it.
Recommend it?
I recommend it.
Okay. Tim, kick it over to you.
All right, kicking it over to me. Mark, I am very surprised you're recommending this. I do not classify this into the Shining category at all. It landed flat for me. It was a B flat for me, wholeheartedly throughout the entire performance. Not that Sam Jackson and John Cusack didn't do their best to deliver their performance. They didn't mail it into me. They did not deliver a performance that was beyond mediocre to me. I'm sorry. It just didn't land like The Shining, like Body Snatchers, like Dreamcatchers. It did. I'm sorry. I love Stephen King's adaptations, but this did not.
Now, Tim, I really look forward to challenging that opinion.
Okay.
Colin, your thoughts?
Well, no, what I did want to sort of like kick back at Tim is like, but to the original question, would you recommend it? Basically, like being, on a 10-point scale, are you higher than 5? Would you say it would be worth somebody's time to see it? Or do you think it would actually be a waste of time to see it?
It'd be a waste of time to see it.
Even if money's not a thing. So this is a freebie. No.
No, even if you saw it for free.
All right.
Even if you saw it from a buddy's basement, if you saw it from Netflix free account or something like that. No. Not worth it.
Go fight you.
Below 5 again, not that the performers didn't do their best, but it's just not a solid Stephen King adaptation. I'm sorry.
Right.
So I'm going to take a little bit of both of your perspectives on this. Tim, I'll actually agree with you that I don't know if I would necessarily like throw this into the same bin as The Shining. I think it has a lot of elements that are similar, and Mark, I really do understand why you drew that comparison, but I think it is like a fundamentally different film overall. Mark, I'm going to agree with you and then like maybe go a little bit further with respect to how much you like this movie. I fucking love this movie. I think this is like truly, I find this movie to be, as far as psychological horror, the most brutal film probably I've ever seen. Like, again, there are things that are scarier. There's no doubt. There are things that are better shot. There are things that are written better. But, like, I can't think of another film that is as, like, brutal psychologically as this movie. Every time I finish watching this movie, I feel, like, exhausted from, like, basically putting myself in the character's position. And I just don't know if any other film sort of brings that type of just, like, 1-2 punch of, like, psychological mayhem. And I really freaking appreciate that about this movie. And so, as you can probably imagine, my perspective on this is watch it. I like it. If you're not into horror, it might not be your thing. If you're not into psychological type movies, you might be missing the type of things that got me particularly enthused about this movie. I'm going to give a little shout out to a buddy of mine, Ryan, who's not a huge horror fan. Ryan, maybe don't watch this. Anybody else who really, vibes horror and psychological thriller, I recommend this at least a watch, because I kind of see where, you might not like it, but I think you might be like me and Mark and really dig it, and it's worth, at least worth rolling the dice on. Am I right? So at this point, we're gonna give you a little heads up on spoilers coming up ahead. we're going to move into spoiler territory. Anybody else want to give anything out before we move into that section?
I mean, personally, no, but I feel like we have thoroughly set the table for some divisive conversation, and I am excited.
So
yeah, if you want to get my 2 cents on it, I feel like it's just too formulaic and too by the numbers for like be it jump scares, be it scary room setup, be it what's the word I'm looking for? Disillusion that you're gonna be out of it.
All right,
it doesn't measure up as better as some of King's best work.
So
and some of the other adaptations from other directors in the past.
So 2 things before we move fully into spoiler territory. I would like to read off. I forgot this last week as well, but I would like to read off the IMDb sort of description of the film, and then what I think we could probably do is move into our overview of the movie. And
this is past spoilers. Do we want to open the Pandora's box that is spoilers?
Not quite. After the IMDb, we're opening up spoilers.
Okay, because
after the IMDb, we're opening up spoilers.
I want to put some color to Tim's opinions.
Yes. No. I totally got you.
Please.
Okay. So IMDb describes this movie. Again, sorry, listeners, I forgot to do this again. A man who specializes in debunking paranormal occurrences checks into the fabled room 1408 in the Dolphin Hotel. Soon after setting in, he confronts genuine terror. I think from a sort of base standpoint, that's actually a really good description that doesn't give anything away. So consider moving forward from this point, spoiler territory. Before you provide some color to Tim's remarks, maybe we should just give like a quick overview of kind of what's going on. John Cusack's character in this is a writer who clearly had aspirations of being a little bit, he clearly had aspirations of being like the great American novelist, and that falls apart at the death of his daughter. And he basically starts writing stuff that's easy and sells well, and that tends to be like countdown horror novels of scary places in the world.
Basically, the 2007 version of Watch Mojo. He was shoveling out. We all love watching Watch Mojo videos, but they're all formula. They're all just ticking off a list. He was writing those books.
Yeah, and presumably, like Watch Mojo, I assume undergoes the same procedure every time to sort of research and to build their lists. He sort of does the same thing, except it's scary places. So he will go to scary hotel rooms or to scary graveyards and sort of rank them and create these lists. He gets a postcard saying, "Don't go in room 1408, Dolphin Hotel, blah, blah, blah." And he ends up obviously going there, getting into the room, and sort of terror ensues. I think that's probably the synopsis, the elevator version of the movie. So Tim, you earlier had made some comments that you weren't crazy about, and Mark, you wanted to sort of hit back at some of those.
I think, what I would love, Tim, for you to lay out your opinions, and I would like to jump on them, and please
do. Yes.
Well, maybe we should have some structure to this.
Maybe we should go over what we liked first.
Was there anything, Tim, that you liked about this movie?
I did like the execution of John Cusack and Samuel L. Jackson's, what's the word I'm looking for? Taking on the characters. They own the characters. They own the characters.
Okay.
They own them. I did love the commitment to Sam Jackson's cautionary tale. As the manager, as the hotel manager, he's like, "Oh, don't do that. Like, anything I can do to disturb you, anything I can do to dissuade you from 1408, I'm gonna do it." And he owned that. For
those of you listening at home, basically, Sam Jackson is the manager of the hotel, and in the same way that like a lot of the people that John Cusack has encountered are trying to dissuade him from like entering their domicile and trying to build up the lore around the room. He basically mistakes Sam Jackson's warnings and foreboding for I guess
Foreplay. I mean,
foreplay, basically. Yeah, for trying to set the stage. Showmanship, exactly.
Yeah.
So keep going. Sorry.
No, that's fine, and I love, and I just love that they establish John Cusack's character as such the debunker, the skeptic.
Yeah, skeptic.
I love,
Good word.
like right from the start. You know that we see him stay at another Hobunk Inn, you know, that has hauntings, and he's just throughout the course of his story, just constantly the skeptic and constantly the doubter that will aid to his and ultimately be the downfall of his character.
I'm gonna back that up right away and say, like, Sam Jackson's character was amazing.
Yeah.
And like Sam Jackson, I love you so much. You're amazing. But Sam Jackson does play Sam Jackson in just about every film he's in.
Much.
And this film, I'm not saying he wasn't Sam Jackson, but like he definitely like he wasn't all Sam Jackson, and it was sort of like the thing that he brought that I think they actually needed was he sort of brought this gravitas to the character where like when he said shit, you fucking listened because he wasn't joking. And I thought the casting objectively seems a little weird, but when you're actually watching the film, he carries such a fucking punch with his words that like when you're listening to that manager, you're screaming in your head. You're like, fucking listen to him. He is telling you the truth, and it's really impactful. And John Cusack's performance, again, I cannot stress enough that objectively it seems really weird to have John Cusack in this kind of role. He's sort of like, he plays this kind of plucky, like comedic guy in a lot of the stuff that he's in. I mean, he's a fucking John Hughes like alumni. Like you sort of expect to see him in Sherman, Illinois. Am I mistaken? Like he's a pretty average guy, but the one thing John Cusack has that other actors and actresses sort of wish they had, a lot of them, is John Cusack can carry an entire performance by himself based solely on his ability to monologue. If you guys have seen High Fidelity, I highly recommend it, and that's on our list to review. But he's just so good at carrying the audience through a story just with these like amazing one-man performances. Like he really like engages you with what he's saying and how he's saying it. And as weird as it sounds in a horror film, like this particular film needed that. And John Cusack was a surprisingly good choice for that, in my opinion.
I would agree with all of that, Tim. I think you're the contrary opinion at the table. Has anything that Colin has said at this point, do you disagree with?
I don't disagree that John Cusack is a good leading man for this particular picture. I just do not see the relevance. I don't get anything out of this story. I love the adaptations of Stephen King to screen. I think there's been some great adaptations like Pet Sematary and The Shining, and
but on the acting specifically, I don't hate John Cusack. I just don't care. I'm sorry. There's nothing there for me in this movie.
So,
like, it's no fault. It's no fault. It's just.
Do you feel a different actor would have better portrayed that character, or do you feel that the character itself was written poorly? And we can maybe segue into a little bit of writing here.
I think it's more about writing. I think it's more.
So John Cusack's performance, in your opinion, was sufficient. Sufficient.
I love John Cusack and Sam Jackson in this movie. I find their performance adequate. I just don't find the story necessary.
All right, my 2 cents on acting. I'm gonna keep hitting the table here. John Cusack. I did really enjoy his character, his portrayal. I felt like he played the condescending jackass very well. Sam Jackson, while there were no motherfuckers or snakes in this movie, no, Sam Jackson I think was a great choice. He provided that I don't know, relatability. I don't know if that's the right word. Gravitas was a good word. I believed him. He felt very sincere. I think that Sam Jackson a lot of times is typecast as this exaggerating caricature of a man, which I almost always love. You know, That's one thing I really appreciate about him. I don't know if that's him or the acting or every movie that he's in. That's one of the things that I look for. This movie didn't have that, but it brought something to the table that or rather, Mr. Jackson brought something to the table that he doesn't. That we don't see very typically.
So, speaking of not seeing it very typically, can I sort of like bring up one movie that I actually think that sort of approximates Sam Jackson's role and character in this is Deep Blue Sea. Do you guys remember that flick from like was it like the late 90s? So Sam Jackson's character in that is very similar to his character in this, in my opinion. He's sort of the cautionary character who is willing to basically like stake his reputation on the thing that he believes in, and he really tries to convince other characters of something. And I think if you've seen Deep Blue Sea and you've seen Sam Jackson in that film and you remember sort of like some of the lines he delivered and how he delivered them, you've sort of got his performance here, and I think that's worth noting. And that's something that I think sort of may help you sort of characterize this in your mind.
So, okay, the writing for me, all right. I think some of Tim's opinions are rubbing off on me here as I'm digesting. There were a few instances where I was very impressed with the writing. Namely, at the beginning of the movie, they convey to you that something tragic has happened to John Cusack's character. Through a conversation with his publicist, they're having a quick kind of banter back and forth. The publicist or editor, whoever his character is, makes the comment, "Are you really ready to go back to New York, where the setting of this movie was?" And Cusack says, "It'll just be for the night, just a quick in and out." You know, with just that I'm doing a terrible job, reciting it, but it communicates to the viewer that something terrible has happened to his character in the past in New York. Without
I think he says something to the effect of like, "I'll be in and out. Nobody has to know. Nobody has to get hurt," and alluding specifically to who you assume is like an ex-lover, an ex-wife, something like that.
Right. But he delivers that information in a very fluid, conversational way. That's not, while I think a lot of times we take that for granted, there are definitely a number of movies, a number of stories, TV shows where they just hit you with the exposition.
Yeah, they're forcing the issue.
Yeah. It landed very well.
I think that was Tony Shalhoub a little bit too in that exchange. Like that's who he was engaging in the dialogue with, and I think for as small of a part as he had in this, props to Tony Shalhoub for making that organic.
Yep.
I got to jump in with the writing thing. Like, first of all, I felt like the writing, I'll fully admit, the writing is a little hot and cold for me. Like, there are some elements, like Mark was describing, that I thought were like, oh my god, that really sucked me in, or like, that was like, that was really well positioned, well described, unfolded naturally. Like, one of these lines fucking caught me, and it just slapped me in the face, and I love it, and I'm going to use it in my normal routine. But it was John Cusack, again, fucking monologuing like a boss, in the room with a tape recorder, and he's sort of describing the room, and it's like, it's pretty fucking mundane, there's like weird paintings on the wall that look like they were picked up at a thrift shop, and like, the wallpaper's all like floral and shit, and he says, I believe this is the quote, "Some idiot spoke about the banality of evil. If this is true, we're in the seventh circle of hell." And I like that fucking, like, that's such an awesome, like, I don't want to call it a quip, because it wasn't necessarily directed at somebody, and I don't know if that's, like, the qualification for a quip, but, like, that fucking landed on me hard, and I started, like, howling. And I thought that was clever. That's a good element of the writing. But at the same time, a lot of the exchanges were pretty mundane, were pretty formulaic, and that is not at all, like, it's obvious it was not at all the fault of the actors portraying. I mean, they nailed it, but I think the writing was a little hot and cold for me.
Tim?
No, yeah, again, I don't want to be the sour apple in the cart, but I am definitely not a fan of the later part of the screenplay. The later reveal, like, oh no, John Cusack is out of the room. Oh no, we're gonna see him get out. Oh no, he's gonna reconnect with his ex-wife and his daughter. Whoops, we got bamboozled. The room's fooled us again. No, it didn't. Nothing fooled us. We all know that he's still in the room. Sorry. I'm
gonna go out there and say I did not. Like,
no, you didn't get that.
I really didn't.
Even from the first viewing in theaters.
No, I mean, I thought like
theaters too.
I thought like one thing that was like really like extra sort of brutal about this movie, and you know, if you're listening and you're kind of like, oh, I don't really mind spoilers, but like this is definitely the kind of spoiler that territory. Like just like do not
get over it.
Yeah. Do not proceed if you don't like spoilers. Yeah. But like, I thought that was one of the most effective parts of the movie is that like he gets hit with like a series of the truly like the most brutal things I can possibly think of psychologically. Like it's not only like a sort of slow burn in the beginning where he's sort of getting
shock. Like,
well, I mean, to me it kind of did a little bit because like you know, in the beginning he's sort of getting toyed with. And, like, shit seems weird, and it's, like, out of place, and it's, like, changing. And then he sort of, like, needs to get out, and he can't, and it's sort of, like, building suspense.
I will say, I do like the Carpenters song.
It's only just begun.
Oh, yeah, that keeps turning on.
I do like the clock radio.
That's sort of basically, like, illustrating the point that, like, this is going to keep happening.
I do like that bit.
And it's... But like,
I do not, like, with that being, like, the initial gate, that being the initial...
Well, let me jump into the serious spoiler territory here. Yeah. So basically, like, he has this kind of, like, slow burn in the beginning where he's getting toyed with, and then it escalates to, like, I need to get out of this room, and I can't. And then it starts to, like, really fuck with him, and it starts to go, like, play images of, like, his father, and he starts, like, to see his father interact with him, and then, like, see... basically, like, the illness of his dead child play out again, and then, you know, it starts to get more and more severe. He keeps thinking that he's going to be rescued, and it keeps not turning out, and the conditions are getting more severe. Then he, like, basically, like, dies, comes back, thinks he's out of the fucking room, and he's out for, like, weeks. Like, fucking weeks. And... out of nowhere, in the middle of something, it basically just gets torn down, and the motherfucker is back in the room, and he's, like, obviously, like, I mean, first of all, how fucking terrible would that be? How fucking brutal would that be? And then, his fucking, like, his fucking daughter comes out of nowhere, and she is, like, crying in his arms, and saying, like, I don't want to go, I don't want to leave, they won't let me stay. And then she dies in his arms for a second fucking time. And he's sobbing. And then she fucking explodes into dust. And the motherfucker is, like, on his last leg. He is absolutely exhausted. He starts to, like, tear down the room. He's blown out of breath. He falls to the fucking floor. And he sees this clock that's, like... It's a trope that they keep using to basically, like, count down his time, and it's just, like, it keeps counting down. That's the clock radio that keeps playing the Carpenter song, and he sees this clock, and it's got seconds left, and it fucking goes to 0, and he's back in the room, and the room is all together again, and nothing has happened, and you're just like, oh my god, it's fucking done. And then the fucking clock goes back to 60 and starts counting down again. To me, that is one of the single most brutal scenes I can fucking imagine. Like, that punches me in the brain like fucking Tyson.
You know, I've been
Fell
sitting
flat
here
for me. Sorry.
I've been sitting here trying to rectify why we can have two very opposing opinions here at this table here.
Fell flat for me. I'm sorry.
Got a theory. I got a theory.
Okay,
Tell me
what's
what
your
you
theory?
guys think. I think if the entire performance is resting on your ability to relate to John Cusack's character, and if you don't care about John Cusack's character, there is nothing in this movie for you. If you don't buy into his relationship with his daughter and his wife, if you don't buy into his monologues, if you don't appreciate his portrayal of it, if you don't really get into his perspective, that's it.
Yeah.
That's it. You don't care that he's going through all these traumatic things. You don't care about that. Not that, and I'm not saying that, like, if you don't like this movie, it's because you just can't see why, it's...
No, that's fair, Mark, because I definitely feel trauma when I watch Pet Sematary, when I watch The Shining, when I watch other adaptations of Stephen King novels. I definitely feel that. But for 1408, fell flat for me.
Now, those other movies have multiple perspectives. They have multiple characters who are contributing to the narrative. This one only really has one.
Yeah.
So if you're not in John Cusack's passenger seat, you don't care.
Very true. And I'm not saying this is the case for you, Tim, but I do think that a lot of people who watch this film, and I truly believe that this is why this film didn't get the notoriety that I feel it really deserves, is John Cusack is a very atypical choice for the leading man in this movie. Yeah. And I think a lot of people watching it are like, they could not get over that hump of, this is Cusack. He's a plucky comic relief kind of guy. Right. And they see him in this role, and he, like, while I think he delivered it well, like, I don't think a lot of critics and a lot of the audience sort of, like, bought into that. And I think that's why it fell flat. And that's kind of why I really, like, that's why I pushed for this film tonight, because I feel like this is the kind of movie that more people would like if they could get over that hump. If they could see Cusack in a different role and sort of appreciate why they needed him for this role, for his sort of monologuing ability and quick wit, and why his performance was solid. As long as, I agree with you, Mark, you could relate to him, I think you'll enjoy this movie.
Well, let me push back on that a little bit, though. Hang on just a second. I don't want to necessarily paint a picture, though, that if you don't like this movie, it's because you can't get over a hump. I think that almost insinuates that it's almost beholden on the viewer to summit that mountain. Maybe you don't want to summit that mountain. Maybe it's... I don't think there's anything wrong with having a contrary opinion to it. I don't think that it's because you just haven't quite...
No, that's true. And I didn't mean to come off that like it's something that you're unable to do. I think it's something that, like, either John Cusack being the leading man in a horror film bothers you or it doesn't. And there's probably not a lot that you yourself personally can do about whether or not that fucking, it tickles the wrong hairs in your brain. If you're a huge John Hughes fan, I would imagine maybe you have a little bit more to get over than a person who's never heard of John Cusack before in their life. So it's one of those things where it's like, it's probably not entirely within your control. But if it's the kind of thing that you don't think would bother you, like, fucking check this thing out.
I cut you off, Tim. What were you saying?
No, I was saying in that vein that John Cusack is definitely the go-to male for a rom-com.
Rom-com, definitely.
Definitely. Looking for the guy that can be the everyman. So I don't doubt his ability to, like, portray
the brood.
Portray the scare tactics of a Stephen King adaptation, but it's just like, it's not my go-to guy. And again, have yet to empathize with his character. I'm sorry. It's just, like, I know I want to. Don't get me wrong. I want to. I get it. He's a dad. He's a writer. He's all these things that I could, like, channel. But it's just like, John, you're just like, you're falling flat for me because you're a douchebag. I'm sorry, in this movie.
He really is.
He's a douchebag in this movie. He's arrogant. He's arrogant and very.
But that is the character. He's playing it well.
That's fine, and he's executing that fine. So that's fine. But
I think also, Tim, you sort of bring up an interesting point where, like, I think Mark, you and I were discussing earlier about whether or not you're relatable to John Cusack from, like, a what he's done before type perspective. I think, Tim, you bring up that he may, like, the character itself may be more or less relatable because he is a skeptic. He is a little bit of an asshole. Mm-hmm. Like, we were talking during the film about, like, his hubris. And, like, there's nothing I love more than, like, fucking hubris in a film and watching the hammer crush down on somebody who just thinks they're sort of untouchable. And to that point, he's got a lot of reason to believe a lot of this. Like, he's got a lot of reason to believe that
he was touched.
He
was touched.
Touched by an angel.
The untouchable was touched.
In the movie, like, after his initial stuff, you're saying, yeah. So, like, his initial character, man, he wasn't playing any shit, and he's seen a lot of hotel rooms. He's been in a lot of, these types of situations and has just been unimpressed. Mm-hmm. And I get that. Like, I really do. And as much as I get that and understand it and understand the character, like, it's still, like, this dude's shooting his mouth off about, like, not being scared of anything and, like, your ghosties and ghoulies won't get to me, and then fucking, like, getting the smackdown. Like, there's something, like, oddly satisfying about that. And but to your back to your point, Tim, I think that could be very off-putting for a lot of people and can give them trouble empathizing with the character. Mm-hmm. And honestly, if you don't empathize with John Cusack's character, Mark, to your earlier point, you are not going to like this movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that when you're describing this movie, you kind of just stop at the IMDb description because
you have to.
That is the movie.
It's very accurate. The IMDb description really fucking nails it.
I think sometimes when you read a description for a movie, it's a tease into it. It's a setup. This was the whole movie. There isn't. The only thing deeper than that IMDb description are, I guess, the relationships. It establishes
and the brutality.
The
psychological brutality of this movie is truly what makes it for me. Mm-hmm. Everything else can sort of fall by the wayside. I appreciate the shit out of how fucking horrific it is. From just a mindset standpoint, it is the fucking hostel of the mind, in my opinion. But one thing I did want to note was on creativity. Okay, so I've watched this movie. So you guys have not seen this since it came out. Is that correct?
Just the one.
In the
theaters.
In the theaters,
right?
Yeah.
So I've watched this movie at least half a dozen times.
Wow.
It's a cinema. I'm a cinephile. Like, you guys are too. You get what I'm saying? I
get that same reaction.
Really dig this movie.
I get that same reaction for some other
right.
I'm
yeah.
sure we'll do on this podcast.
Yeah, you're like, I watched Chariots of Fire fucking 100 times. Yeah, I get it.
It's no Anchorman.
Okay, I love Anchorman. You back off.
No,
there.
it's Fallen. Or it's Children of Men.
But from a creativity standpoint, something that, like, I've seen this movie several times and I've missed. Okay, so let me, like, kind of lead you through the progression of this movie. So, like I said, he's getting sort of toyed with, and one of the first things that happens is, like a psychological torment, and then it sort of goes into, like, the room gets really hot, and then he sort of goes into a couple of other things, and then the room ends up getting really cold, and, like, during the scene where it gets really cold and it's all, like, fucking covered in snow and stuff, he's, like, bundled in, like, blanket after blanket, and he's, like, burning things to stay warm, and he starts, like, repeating what kind of seems like babblish. He seems sort of like he's just like ranting as like a cold, aloof person who's sort of losing their mind in the extreme conditions. But if you're actually listening to what he's saying, he's talking about the levels of hell.
Yes,
and he starts
something from Dante's Inferno.
Yeah, and he starts talking about like basically like what he's been through and the levels that he's gone through, and he's basically saying like, I'm going through the levels of hell, and this is whatever fucking level 6 or whatever it is, where like it's just a cold wasteland, and there's no food, there's no warmth, there's nothing to connect to, and I totally fucking missed that in this film, and I'll fully admit it, and I'm sure some of you listeners out there are going to watch this film and be like, whoa, that's obvious, and, fuck you. Like, I don't care. It missed me, and I'm so happy I fucking caught it this time around, and movies that can sort of have that rewatchability where you're picking up new things each time, I dig that, and this movie, that sort of creativity really caught me. It really did.
I'm sorry, Colin, because I have to chime in, because I think that's another nod to the novelization, probably. That's something that Stephen King probably incorporated into his original adaptation to this, and did not translate well to the screen. I feel like this is just a failure of adapting Stephen King's original works to the motion picture, again, maybe it's not.
So my response to that would be like, that sounds like speculation.
However,
I think it's probably well-founded speculation, because Stephen King, he doesn't miss a lot of fucking points. Like, I could very well see that being a sort of key element of the novel that I have not read. However, is it novel, short story? I don't honestly know.
We don't read. We watch movies.
We don't read. We just watch.
Well, I just read an IMDb description, so I'm practically.
I'm hoping we can watch Shawshank Redemption. I know that's a short story, but whatever.
I mean, I don't want to like mess with the fourth wall here, but when we first started this movie, there were some subtitles going on, and I was a little nervous.
He was sweating.
I didn't come here to read.
He was sweating pure wine.
Yeah. Right. Tim, I'm curious if you could try to encapsulate your disdain for this picture into 1 or 2 articulated sentences.
Okay.
Try to boil it down for me.
My disdain for it?
Yeah.
Disdain is a strong word.
It's a strong word.
Your lack of appreciation, your disillusionment, your, I don't know. You're meh.
It's apathetic.
Why didn't you recommend it?
It's apathetic.
Look, you want to take the short?
Yeah,
sure. I'm taking the long road.
The word you're looking for, from my vocabulary, is apathetic. It's an apathetic Stephen King adaptation. I'm sorry. I love Stephen King. I love the adaptations. I love the TV specials, and I love the movies, and I love the adaptations.
See, to me, it sounds...
I'm sorry, this is an apathetic execution.
So, to me, though, it sounds like... And I wouldn't
love
necessarily...
it and hate it at the same time.
I wouldn't necessarily disagree with you that, like, there are elements of this movie that probably could have been done better, but, like, to me, it sounds a little bit like your dislike for this movie largely derives from your affinity for other Stephen King adaptations. Like, you've repeated that several times.
It could be better.
And it's like...
It could be better.
But, assuming, let's, like, hypothetically say this was not a Stephen King adaptation. Let's say it was something else. It was an original piece.
That's just boring.
Do you really feel that, though?
It sounds like he does. It sounds like he's pretty firm in that case.
I know, but it sort of sounds like all the arguments to be made are surrounding comparisons to other Stephen King adaptations.
Why not?
I'm going to move to the other side of this table here and say it sounds to me like Colin, and just call me out for being...
I would rather see the Tommyknockers, and I would rather see the Shining remake made for TV 100 times over rather than this.
I
feel like that's a little strong.
Nope, I would.
He's pretty serious. I think, Colin...
I think, because, again, I appreciate their execution.
I think, Alan,
because their commitment to it.
You are looking for reasons to, not criticize, to deconstruct Tim's apathetic view of this feature. I think you are applying meaning where you want to, and almost insinuating that perhaps if you didn't like it, you just didn't look hard enough.
No, truly not that. That's not the case. I think to your original question of like, what did you not like? Tim's response to me seemed like I didn't like it because compared to other Stephen King adaptations, I felt it was subpar. Which I'm not saying couldn't be the case. Stephen King's written some fucking awesome stuff. And the adaptations of those things. I mean, Stand By Me, Shawshank Redemption.
Oh, yeah.
Like, you're talking about like award-winning films. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm not putting this in the category of Shawshank Redemption. I'm not.
No, you can't.
But I also
would tear you apart if you did.
But I also don't feel like it should be held to that standard. I feel like it is a fundamentally different film. And I feel like it's the kind of film that needs to be taken for what it is. I feel like it's a psychological horror thriller, mm-hmm. and to be perfectly honest, like I'm not entirely in disagreement with you that like a lot of the elements are sort of like okay, not bad. Mm-hmm. Some may be mediocre, some may be good, but nothing exceptional. And to me, the thing that makes this movie is how absolutely fucking horrific it is psychologically. I cannot think of another film that when I see it, just absolutely slays me at how fucking nasty it is to the mind.
Now, that stance, though, is entirely dependent on your ability to relate to John Cusack.
It is.
If we strip away your attachment
Very
to John Cusack, that excitement dissipates.
Oh, there's no doubt. So I'm not going to reveal what my score on this movie is quite yet because we haven't reached that part of the podcast. But I will say that like the brutality, the psychological brutality of this film, in my mind, will gain this movie an extra like 1.5, maybe 2 points. And I think that's valid, truly, like, because I think some movies have certain elements that other movies just don't have, and it's like, for that one reason, that's what makes this movie special. And I that's kind of my motivation behind, like, when I recommend this movie, I'm like, listen, you should probably see this movie because no other movie sort of stacks up in this one really fucking narrow view, because you can sort of, movies are a little bit like supermarkets, and it's like, you fucking go to whatever it is, Aldi, because their fucking meat is awesome, or they got great wine,
chicken drumsticks,
are
fucking.
I'm not saying everything in the supermarket is
no.
amazing, but I'm saying is like if you're looking for awesome chicken drumsticks, maybe go to Aldi.
I got you now.
Aldi, are you going to sponsor us? Are you going to sponsor us?
I got you now, Colin. Colin, you've won me over with that analogy.
Fair enough.
I got you now. Like again, I will not give a high endorsement for this movie. For 1408 at the end of this podcast, but I appreciate Colin's analogy for that.
I'm gonna say that Colin kind of walked into Tim's little trap when he just equated 1408 to the Aldi's of Stephen King novels. Good job, sir.
I love Aldi, sir.
It's fantastic.
No, it's fine. Yeah, but it's no holiday market.
No.
That's
never.
true.
Oh God, no, never.
Holiday market. Are you going to sponsor us?
Holiday market.
Yeah.
They sell the
There's probably like I don't know how many holiday markets there are in the world, but not enough.
At least
let's say not enough.
Royal Oak and Canton. Royal Oak and Canton. I know at least 2. I know of at least 2.
All right, so I feel like we're starting to wrong long here, but let's try to sum up the last categories. Special effects, intangibles. My thoughts. There wasn't a whole lot in the way of, well, I guess CGI. A lot of this was very practical. I think the set was the room.
Nothing to write home about, in my opinion, on special effects. The one thing I will actually I will give this movie a tiny bit of a sort of negative on special effects. Not in that it was terrible. It wasn't terrible. Again, it was sort of middle of the road. But one of the things that they sort of employed to show that basically things were not going to affect the outside world was they took this sort of a television type approach where it was like a projector and things would flicker out of existence as if short circuited. And it wasn't the worst thing in the world. It didn't take me out of the film, but there probably were other things they could have done that would maybe would have made it a little bit better. Yeah. Just a little bit better.
Yeah. I agree with that criticism. I don't have any good alternatives. So,
But, I mean, I would say, overall, not great, not terrible, sort of right in the middle.
The water looked wet.
It did.
It looked believably
wet. It was probably the wettest water I've seen in recent cinematic history.
I mean, it was truly moist. There was a dampness to this water that can't be appreciated without just some really... I don't know,
you have to be at the lake.
Yeah, it was very aquatic, the water. The quality of it, it had a certain, I don't know, intangible humidity to it.
He keeps going.
Anyhow, intangibles. Do we have any thoughts on intangibles? I don't really have much to add to that category. Did you guys have anything?
I think I covered it a little bit in creativity with the going through the levels of hell thing. I think it was kind of cool, kind of creative, and I thought that again, intangibles. Maybe that brutality that I'm talking about fits into intangibles, because that really doesn't. It fits. It sort of hits on writing a little bit, but I think it really is intangibility. It just, to me, I watch this movie and I just think what the fuck I would do in that situation. And to be perfectly honest, okay, again, spoiler alert, here we go. We're going down. Basically, what this room wants you to fucking kill yourself. So we didn't really say that earlier in the podcast, but this room wants you to end your life. And he sort of
He's going to show you anything you want that will convince you for
exactly. And he sort of delves into it a little bit when he picks up the phone and he's why don't you just kill me? And they're all of our customers enjoy free will. Basically you have to fucking do it yourself, and we're gonna
check out anytime you want.
But you can never leave. Yes, yeah, it's very Eagles. It's very Eagles.
Very Hotel California. Yes.
And it's one of those things where
and then please enjoy our express checkout service.
Jumping out of the window.
Which is a little. I thought that was kind of creative. I thought it was kind of cool. And so the room cannot kill you, or sort of you're led to believe it cannot kill you, but it's basically going to torment you until you kill yourself.
Yeah.
And he if I always think if I fucking experience what this guy experienced, even half of what this fucking guy experienced, I'd fucking off myself in a heartbeat. It is fucking nasty stuff. Truly, truly horrible stuff. But it's all upstairs. It's all in your mind. There's he's not getting his flesh peeled off. He's not getting smoking hot pokers, red hot pokers getting crammed into orifices. This dude is just experiencing some really fucking terrible psychological trauma. And I just don't know of any other movies that sort of take that tact. So from
Passion of the Christ?
I feel that's maybe a little bit more of the physical trauma that we were talking about.
Went through some shit. Anyway, bad joke.
I would maybe have to classify that under intangibles.
Tangible.
Tangible.
Right.
Are we ready to move on to our ratings?
Yes.
I think so.
Let's give a recommendation.
All right. You know what? Let's make an Oreo here. We'll go. Colin?
Yeah. So, I will go 6.9 slit wrists on this particular podcast, or in this particular film. You can't see Mark's face right now, but he's horrified. And I say that because this entire, like, fucking room is predicated on, like, killing yourself, and, like, quite a number of the victims have taken that particular route out, which is, you know, it's the express lane. It really is. Again, I love this movie. I really do. I think it's well acted, writing's mediocre, directing's mediocre. But it's got that sort of intangibility of just this 1-2 punch of psychological brutality. And I would say I'd give it probably in the 5s, and then an extra 1.5 to 2 points for just that alone. So I think I originally said 6.9. Is that correct? So 6.9 slit wrists.
Okay.
All right. I give this a 3 out of 10.
Oh, fuck you.
Yep, 3 out of 10.
Hey, it's his rating.
That's my rating. 3 out of 10. Not lit cigarettes, as John Cusack does not light the cigarettes in his haunting rooms. So he's not engaging. I'm not engaged. Nobody is engaged. Sorry. It's 3.0.
3.0 out of 10.
Out of 10.
You know you have seen the movie Monster.
Yes.
Where a
More conviction is
where
placed in Monster.
a serial killer poop
Yep.
murders people.
Yep.
And you're going to give this movie a 3 out of 10.
Yep, I sure am.
He's
Sure as shit I am.
All right, well, I'm going to echo that 3.10 and challenge you with a 7.6 Dead Daughters. Okay?
Oh, no.
Brutal.
Oh, it's too much. I'm
So
sorry.
much.
I got kids.
Yeah, notice how the one person who rated this lowly doesn't have kids.
Yeah.
There you go. No, I enjoyed it. I'm not going to put it up in the 8s, you know, because I can appreciate Tim's perspective in that if you don't buy it, then...
Yeah.
If you don't buy John Cusack's performance or you don't buy his character, you're not feeling it. But
You've saved $10.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
And I can't pretend that doesn't exist. But I think for the psychological horror viewer, yeah, I think what this is a 7 point. Was it what I said?
6, I think.
7.6 Dead Daughters, I think, kind of covers it.
Yeah.
Dead Daughters.
I'm sorry. Hey, that's an element of the movie. It fits.
It really does. So, that's about all for the Alt Crep review. Thanks for listening. If you have any ideas for movie reviews, email us at 3, that is the number 3, maninabasement@gmail.com. Until then, I'm Colin McLeod.
I'm Timothy Magic.
I'm still Mark Culp.
All right, and we'll see you in cyberspace.
Peace.